Professor Wilson, for all of us, for Michael McKee, congratulations on this award. Were you surprised?
Yes, I was surprised because it seemed like the time had long passed. Most of the interest in auctions peaked, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah. I look, Professor Wilson, at this, and we know from Stanford the monetary theory of John B. Taylor and the Hoover Institution and such. Describe what auction theory means for our organization, for our societal organization, where Stanford has led for 40 years.
Well, we think of it more generally in terms of market design, that there are many ways in which the institutions, the procedural rules, and so on, the ways in which we allocate resources can be improved. A lot of times these interventions are really, let's say, minor changes on the margin, but in some cases they create entirely new markets. So we saw that in the spectrum auctions, but my colleague Alvin Roth, he worked on a market for exchange of kidneys among donors and recipients. So there are many novel applications in which we create markets, people participate, and they can work efficiently and with good incentives.
Well, you're modest there. Then Alvin Roth studied under you at Stanford a few years ago. I think, Robert Wilson, of all this, and what I think of is my colleague John Ferro bidding for a piece of art at Christie's in London. Your work goes so far beyond the auctions that we understand, the auctions of the art market, or maybe the auctions for a foreclosed house. What does our audience worldwide need to know about where the science of auctions is going and what it means for us worldwide?
Well, we could deal with very complex multi-commodity kinds of situations. So there are many different spectrum licenses. In electricity, we're talking about electricity at various times, at various places. So these are ones in which systems in which we're allocating a huge variety of resources continuously over time. In the case of electricity, it's a complex, so much more complex than a single piece of art being auctioned under a gavel, and then the next one, and then the next one. Instead, these are cases in which people are trying to buy or sell like packages of things, or instead of electricity, you have to have the energy, the transmission lines, all of the connections that are necessary. So you're bidding for a complex commodity, and there are many of them.
Professor, this is an incredibly relevant field of study in our digital era, as well as an era of central bank intervention where a lot of people are wondering whether efficient markets still exist among public equities and public debt. I know you focus on the less mainstream asset classes and how to auction them efficiently, but based on your intensive knowledge of efficient markets, how inefficient have public markets gotten with that central bank intervention?
That's way beyond my expertise, I'm afraid. I couldn't give a reliable answer. Sorry.
All right. Well, in that case, are there other asset classes that you foresee moving to a sort of auction format in our digital era that perhaps haven't been thought of in that way?
Well, a good one to think about is something like electricity, because we have all these needs now for solar-powered energy from solar power and from wind, and it's quite variable. So we need to create new kinds of markets for those kinds of variable resources, to keep the supply provided to meet the demand.
Right.
So that's a new and different kind of application.
Robert Wilson, I want to take you beyond the theory of syndicates and what seems like ancient auction theory to what we're dealing with every day, which is our new digital dominance. The auctions that take part, obviously on eBay, but far more the auctions and the information flow led by Apple, led by Google, and the rest as well. What do you presume to be the future for how we bid each day within technology?
Well, I think if you take those kinds of auctions as examples, what you see is they're mostly automated, that these are They're done minute by minute or second by second, and they're done with bidding bots, robots or algorithmic methods. So there's a continuous reallocation of resources. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that in many fields.